Hello, and thank you for joining us again here on Strange Pathways. I am your host, Scott Mort, and I have had one of the most fun-filled weeks of my life. It is almost my 1-year anniversary, and to celebrate, my wife Ariana and I spent the night in the most delightful hotel I've ever stayed in. The Grand Midway Hotel in Windber. It's this massive 33-room structure that filmmaker Blair Murphy, who was just an amazing host, has turned into a veritable museum of the macabre, the strange, and the paranormal. The building itself, as soon as you walk in, it gives you this strange air, this foreboding yet welcoming feel. It was a rough trek for me. I'm not gonna lie. I have an injury to my right ankle, and that right ankle has caused a deterioration of my left knee. I believe the doctor has called it a compensational injury. Plus, my weight is not anywhere near where it should be. I am more than a few pounds overweight. It made it a rough climb, but it was so thoroughly enjoyable. Whenever you walk into the Grand Midway, you're greeted by this wonderful bar in the shape of the Titanic. Kind of a nod to the fact that the town itself, Windber, is named after the Berwyn Coal Company, who sold the coal to the Titanic. This museum, this hotel, this absolutely massive, twisted fist of the paranormal is so wonderful. And I do plan to go back there again. Did I have any paranormal experiences? That's tough to say. At one point, whenever we were on the tour in the kitchen, I did get the feeling that there was a cat gently rubbing up against my leg, and no cat was there. It's hard to tell. Once again, I had done a lot of walking, my legs were hurting, and if I was anywhere else, I would have chalked that up to muscle spasms, what have you, from walking so much that day. There's a beauty to the hotel. There's a fear to the hotel as well. We stayed in the Shakespeare Room, which, much to my wife's delight, was probably the least creepy room in the hotel. We shared the hotel with 3 other couples that night. There is a plethora of material to look at. A wonderful statue of Death taking a heart from New Orleans. The Frankenstein Room was just a cornucopia, a literal love letter to the movie, the story of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster. Each room too it was very much themed, and it had this wonderful quality of no internet, no cable TV. They had a wide array of movies to choose from. That night, I know for a haunted hotel, this wasn't really to put us in the mood, but that night my wife did enjoy The Lion King. We were in the Shakespeare Room. The Lion King is Hamlet. And there was so much strangeness. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. If you stay at the Grand Midway Hotel, and I strongly, strongly suggest you stay at the Grand Midway Hotel. If you are a lover of the paranormal, if you are a lover of the macabre, if you are a lover of the strange, it is going to be one of the most fun-filled nights you will have. But if you're going to stay there, would you classify it as a 4-star? No. It's kind of in this halfway state of dilapidation and repair, which honestly really adds to the feel of it. It is a very cold hotel. Blair himself said if the temperature is 6 outside, it's going to be 8 inside. The rooms are heated, though. The rooms are heated. If you're looking for a place that has a bathroom in each suite, not going to happen. The bathroom is at the end of the hall. But if you're looking for something to test your mettle, if you're hoping for something to give you a glimpse into whether the afterlife exists or not, I really can think of no better place than the Grand Midway Hotel. Home of the world's largest Ouija board. Home of the world's largest tarot card. But, down to brass tacks, do I believe that the Grand Midway Hotel is haunted? I kind of had a little discussion with Blair Murphy about this. And in my opinion, for what it's worth, which is next to nothing, I'm going to be quite honest, the answer is both yes and no. And we're going to get into this. Do I personally believe that the spirits of the deceased wander through the Grand Midway Hotel? I don't. I'm probably wrong. But I mean, it's a very loaded question. It's either a yes or no. I don't believe, though. And I'm going to be the first one to admit that I may be wrong. That this is personal bias. I don't want to think, and we'll talk a little bit more about this woman. I don't want to think that a young lady, Martha, who was killed at this hotel, I don't want to believe that she has to exist well beyond her years at this hotel. She died in 1911. She would be dead now. I don't want to believe she exists. She's stuck at this motel just because she had a horrible death. I don't want to believe that we're stuck after we die. So that is a little bit of bias on my part. But I do believe that because we want it to be haunted, we make it haunted. I'm not saying strange stuff doesn't happen there. It obviously does. But is there an intelligence behind it? Perhaps. Maybe not. Maybe the intelligence behind this is us. We're going to go all the way back to July 4th, 1911. We're going to talk about one Martha Minnie Serwinski, who is staying at the Grand Midway Hotel in Windber. She's 18 years old, and she's standing on the Juliet balcony on the third floor of the Midway Hotel. The balcony is no longer there. But it must have been massive, because she's standing with 40 or 50 people, and they're watching the display of fireworks. They're going to be put off in the direction of the Windber Fire Company on Graham Avenue, which, to get to Graham Avenue, you have the motel, you have the train tracks, you have Graham Avenue. Some boys put a skyrocket in a piece of heavy steel pipe. The pipe, just to give you an idea, it is 6 inches in diameter. It is 3 feet long. There is an amazing, teeth-shattering explosion. The rocket had become lodged in the pipe, and the pipe bursts into pieces. One of these pieces, one of these ugly shards of shrapnel, leaves the end of the pipe, and it is thrown into the neck of Martha Selinsky. She's hit on the right side of the neck, just above the shoulder. The piece of pipe almost tore off her head. The jugular vein completely severed. The spinal cord is injured. A Dr. Smith is hurriedly called, but Martha is dead within 10 minutes. 10,000 people in front of the Midway Hotel. They were unaware that anything had happened. They continued the celebration. But then, as things often do in a small town like Windber, word spreads. A hush falls over the crowd. The remaining fireworks are not set off. Amazingly, no one else is injured. Windows in the Midway Hotel, in another store, in 2 other stores, the Big Four store and the Mills, they're broken. A large hole is cut into the weatherboarding of the Big Four store. Now Martha, she was a pretty girl. She was popular in Windber. Martha was a clerk in the Five and Dime store, and a clerk in the dry goods department of the Eureka Supply Company. Rumors had it that she was a prostitute, but I found nothing to suggest that. Her father had died about 7 months before her. She was survived by her mother. I don't want to think Martha is stuck there. I want to think that what people see, what they mistake for Martha, is the memory of her. It's fun to think that places are haunted. But if ghosts exist, and I believe they do, they're humans. They're people like you and I, who are deserving of love. They're deserving of caring. It's a human being. I've often thought that maybe a ghost is just a person who has suffered a full body amputation. The phantom limb syndrome taken to its most extreme. I want to believe that Martha is in some other realm, happy with her family. I want to believe what people see is just a replaying, just a memory, and there's no sentience behind it. And that very well may be. So what proof do we have that maybe we create the ghosts? There is an absolutely remarkable woman in history, which everyone should know about. Alexandra David-Niel. She's an opera singer. She's a writer. She's a Buddhist, a spiritualist, a Belgian-French explorer. And she is most well known for her 1924 visit to Lhasa, Tibet. It was, at the time, forbidden for foreigners to visit Lhasa, Tibet. Alexandra David Niall and her companion, Yongden, disguised themselves as a beggar and a monk, carried a backpack, and tried to be as discreet as possible whenever they left for the Forbidden City. She didn't take a camera. She didn't take survey equipment. But under her rags, she hid a compass, a pistol, and a purse for money to use as ransom if necessary. They reached Lhasa in 1924, merged with a crowd of pilgrims, and stayed in Lhasa for 2 months before visiting the surrounding monasteries. Now, the Dalai Lama at the time, nor his assistants, welcomed David Niall. She was neither shown the treasures of the lamasery, nor awarded a diploma. Now, the Dalai Lama did know David Niall well, but he didn't know she was there, and she couldn't reveal her identity. She was finally unmasked. She was too cleanly. She went to wash herself every morning in the river, and she was denounced to the governor of Lhasa. By the time the governor took action, David Niall and Yongden had already left. But what does Alexander David Niall have to do with the paranormal? If you get a chance, please read her book. It was absolutely fascinating. The copy that I have is called With Mystic and Magicians in Tibet. But that's an old copy. In 1958, it was reprinted as Magic and Mystery in Tibet. Now, one section of this book, it deals with the subject of thought forms and how David Niall learned to create them through mental concentration. She had seen these thought forms of other people, and soon she vowed to create one for herself. These thought forms, the Nepalese call them tulpas. If you're going to research tulpas, it is really, really important to do your research well. Tulpas have become very popular in recent years. But what some would call a tulpa, and what I think of as a tulpa, apparently is two very different things. A lot of people that I've looked at their posts on Reddit, I would say that I could replace tulpa with the word imaginary friend. Tulpas are a bit different than that. David Niall decides to create a short, fat, jolly monk. Now, she shuts herself in a room and begins to concentrate. It takes her several months. She creates a tulpa so lifelike, it looked just as real as a living person. David Niall describes him as kind of a guest living in her apartment. This tulpa would follow her around after she left her residence and ended the experiment. Now maybe you're thinking, oh, okay, she hypnotized herself to believe that there was something there. This tulpa develops a life of its own, and other people start seeing it. In her own words, she says, "Though I lived in the open, riding on horseback for miles each day, the illusion persisted. I saw the fat tulpa. Now and then, it was not necessary for me to think of him to make him appear. The phantom performed various actions of the kind that are natural to travelers and that I had not commanded. For instance, he walked, stopped, looked around him. The illusion was mostly visual, but sometimes I felt as if a robe was lightly rubbing against me, and once a hand seemed to touch my shoulder." Now this tulpa, though, David Niall is starting to notice this thing is beginning to change shape. It's becoming more and more sinister. The fat, chubby-cheeked, jolly guy, he grows leaner. His face begins to have a mocking, sly, malignant look to it. And he becomes very troublesome. Once again, in her own words, "Once a herdsman who brought me a present of butter saw the tulpa in my tent and took it for a live llama. Only after several months, 6 months to be exact, was I able to destroy my creation through extreme concentration." That's the extreme concentration of one woman. An amazing woman, no doubt. But one woman. What happens whenever you've got the concentration, the fascination of several people? Are these paranormal phenomena products of the human mind? Are we seeing that girl covered in blood? Because that's what we're expecting. If I'm expecting it, and thousands of other people are expecting it, why can't it happen? The great Art Bell himself toyed around with this power. These intention experiments. One night he asks for proof that aliens exist. And in a very short time, the Phoenix Lights happen. But how do you test that idea? In the 1970s, the Toronto Society for Psychical Research decided to do just that. Under the guidance of Dr. A.R.G. Owen, they assembled a group of 8 people from its membership to make sure none of them had any psychic gifts. Now, this group, which was known as the Owen Group, it consisted of Dr. Owen's wife, an amazing woman in her own right. She was a former chairperson of Mensa. She was an industrial designer, an accountant, a housewife, a bookkeeper, and a student of sociology. Another member was Dr. Joel Witten, who was a psychologist. What this group did was create a fictional historic character. They wrote a short biography on a person they created named Phillip Aylesford. Phillip is an aristocratic gentleman. He lived in the middle 1600s at the time of Oliver Cromwell. He had been a supporter of the king. He was Catholic. And he's married to a beautiful but cold and frigid wife named Dorothea. She's the daughter of a neighboring nobleman. One day, when out riding on the boundaries of his estates, Philip comes across a gypsy encampment and sees a beautiful dark-eyed girl with black hair. Her name's Margot, and they fall instantly in love. He brings her back secretly to live in the gatehouse near the stables of Diddington Manor, the family home. And he's able to keep this love nest secret. But eventually Dorothea finds Margot, accuses her of witchcraft, of stealing her husband. Phillip is too scared of losing his reputation and his possessions to protest at the trial of Margot. And she is convicted of witchcraft and burned at the stake. Phillip is so remorseful that he didn't try to defend Margot, and he paces the battlements of Diddington in despair. He ends up throwing himself off those battlements, and one morning his body is found crushed at the bottom of them. The Owen Group even gets an artist to do a sketch portrait of Phillip. So they have a bio, they have a portrait, and it's all BS. They even throw things in the bio that contradict themselves. In September of 1972, the group begin their sittings, informal gatherings, which they would discuss Phillip, his life, meditate on him, and try to visualize him into what, think of it as a collective hallucination. It isn't done creepily. It's not done in a spooky way. This is done in a fully lit room. And it goes on for about a year. No results. Sometimes they kind of feel a presence in the room, but there isn't anything that they would consider communication. So they form a new plan. They decide to duplicate the atmosphere of the classic seance, dimming the lights, sitting around a table, singing songs, and surrounding themselves with pictures of the type of castle they imagined, as well as objects from that time period. And it works. During one evening seance, the group gets its first communication from Phillip. They hear a rap on the table. Soon Phillip is answering questions asked by the group. 1 rap for yes, 2 for no. And how do they know it's Phillip? They ask him. Are you Phillip? There it is. They know. These sessions take off like a jet from there. The phenomena itself begins to expand on the tale of Phillip. He even seems to have a bit of a personality. He has likes, he has dislikes, he has strong views on subjects. His spirit is able to move the table. He's able to slide it side to side. And this is on thick carpet. This is on thick carpet. It isn't like, oh, it's a bit of a slick floor. No, this is thick carpet. And the table's moving side to side. Sometimes it would dance on one leg. But Phillip is a creation of this group's collective imagination. He can accurately answer questions about events and people of his time period, but he is completely unaware of other information. Phillip's responses can only come from one place: the group's own minds. Now, some members of the group thought they heard whispers, but no voice was ever captured on tape. But there was also psychokinetic powers. If the group asked Phillip to dim the lights, they would dim instantly. And by the way, we had a little bit of that in the Grand Midway Hotel. Lights flickered a little bit. Phillip was able to start and stop cool breezes blowing across the table at will. There were a few occasions where a fine mist formed over the center of the table. It almost seemed like the table itself became Phillip, because the table would rush over to meet latecomers. Or if Phillip didn't want members to leave, the table would trap members in the corner of the room. The absolute climax of the experiment was a seance conducted before a live audience of 50 people. This session was also part of a TV documentary, and Phillip was not stage shy. There were table rappings, noises around the room, lights blinking on and off. A full levitation of the table. It only rose about half an inch off the floor. The dim lighting, it prevented the levitation from being captured on the film. If you want to see footage of the actual experiment, I will leave a link in the Strange Pathways Facebook page where you can see footage of the actual experiment. As amazing as this is, the Owen group, who got far more than they ever imagined, they were never able to make Phillip actually materialize. That was one of their goals. They wanted a full materialization, but they never got Phillip to materialize. The Toronto organization, this is a success. This is an amazing success. They decide to try it again. Completely different group of people. A new fictional character. 5 weeks. 5 weeks this time. The new group establishes contact with their new ghost, Lilith, a French-Canadian spy. They do it again. Sebastian, a medieval alchemist. They do it again. Axel, a man from the future. All of them were completely fictional, and yet all produced unexplained communication. Another group, part of the scientific method, is repeating the process. Another group in Sydney, Australia, attempts a similar test called the Skippy Experiment. This Australian team focuses on a fictitious character named Skippy Cartman. She's a 14-year-old girl who was murdered by an older man. Skippy had been having an affair with her Catholic school teacher, Brother Monk. And whenever the beautiful girl becomes pregnant, she goes to Brother Monk, who she loved, for direction and advice. She was afraid the other school children would find out, that the parents would find out, but Brother Monk murders her by strangling her and buries her in a shallow grave beneath the floorboards of a work shed on her parents' property. The body is discovered. It had already suffered a year of exposure to earthly elements and decomposition. So, as a result of this, they can't tell that this girl is pregnant. Brother Monk moves to another community, and his crime is never discovered. This is, of course, all a lie. It's fiction, pure fiction. The group would meet once a week for 5 months, saw no results. They get frustrated and begin sitting around a light 3-legged card table and have success. The first night they hear a light tapping from somewhere inside the table. A second sitting brings results as well. After 15 minutes in the second sitting, the table begins to move by itself. It's spinning around, balancing on one leg, dragging people behind it. Now, are Tulpas, the Skippy Experiment, the Phillip Experiment, are they proof that ghosts don't exist? No. You can look at this as this is something from our own mind, which I believe is extremely possible. Or you can take this from a different point of view. You can say that these groups got the attention of something on the other side, and it decided to play along. I mean, we've all done that, haven't we? We've all played along with a lie, somebody we know is lying to us. It's fun. And why wouldn't we do this? In any case, and in my opinion, the Phillip experiment, the Skippy experiment, they have proven to me personally that paranormal phenomena is very, very, very real. It's a strange world we live in. Maybe we are doomed to stick around. I certainly hope not. But the next time you go ghost hunting, if that is your thing, try to remember that this may be a human being that you're talking to. A traumatized human being. So instead of those jerks that scream at ghosts, that antagonize them, maybe approach ghost hunting with a bit of compassion. Because whatever happens to them, it's going to happen to me. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to everyone on this planet. There's not a man or woman alive that will not find out what happens after death. So maybe those who have gone before us deserve a little bit more respect than we are giving them. Thank you for joining us this week on Strange Pathways. I have had an absolute blast. Very, very special thank you going out to Blair Murphy of the Grand Midway Hotel for being so kind and caring and just a wonderful host. If you'd like to contact us, you can do so through strangepathwaysmail@gmail.com. And head on over to the Facebook page. We're going to have a lot of photos, a lot of links dealing with the cases that we talked about today. Once again, thank you for joining us. Take care of yourselves and each other.